enough is enough. This can't go on any longer, and as the famous saying goes, sunlight is the best disinfectant. So, here we go. I'm currently being legally abused and intimidated into silence by a former employer. This has been going on for a while now, and it simply cannot live in darkness for another day. But I am asking for your help to fight back. First, some context. In late October of 2023, to my surprise, I was served these papers. A cease and desist from my former employer. It threatened severe legal action in the form of a lawsuit and demanded I cease communications with my friends. The scare tactics of cease and desist are generally to intimidate, isolate, and eventually devastate. Like most cease and desist, it also demanded that I swiftly provide them written certificate of my compliance. I did not. In the same delivery, I was also served these papers. A Rule 202 petition from my former employer. You can look that up on the internet. I know I had to. These documents were filed with the county court of my former place of employment, demanding that I be subject to an oral deposition under oath for an unlimited amount of time, where they were free to interrogate me on pretty much any private matter that they chose. Also, in this petition for discovery, they demanded that I turn over documents of all communications with more than a dozen of my friends, an unlimited amount of unnamed persons in any form, and over an unlimited period of time. I did not. Now, I did not for a few reasons. Number one, I have seen how this employer handles legal issues, and I knew that once I opened the door to legal abuse, it would never, ever be shut. This is how they operate. In fact, I'm not the only one who's a current victim. My former employer is exploiting the legal system to abuse others right now, all in the darkness, fully knowing that the fear and risks it takes to speak up. This kind of harassment at the hands of the powerful isn't just designed to financially ruin somebody, it's designed to cripple their soul. Now, I wasn't about to put my family on embarking upon a journey down that road. Number two, I was not about to allow the privacy of my personal life, the trust I have with my friends, and the real relationships I have with them to be violated in such an vindictive and abusive manner. It simply was not going to happen. I received the latest article of legal harassment on Friday, March 22nd, 2024. After a month now of litigation exhausting even the court with relentless amendments to their Rule 202 petition, my ex-employer was finally awarded their request for my oral deposition and any document of communication with my friends that they believe may provide any avenue to sue me or others. As it stands, they await my forced cooperation. I will not. I will continue to fight. Now, here's the big question, is what was their entire reason for this harassment and the basis for their claims? These documents, an NDA. Some more context. I signed this separation agreement, an NDA, containing a strict and very broad non-disparagement clause many years ago. I voluntarily left my job after deciding I could no longer put myself or my growing family through the toxic and abusive work environment I had endured for years. This place was and is to this day a workplace rife with sexual misconduct, degeneracy, and aggression. The things I saw, the things done to me, and the things I witnessed my employer do to others were disgusting, shocking, and utterly indefensible. I have the receipts. This all took a serious toll on my personal health. To the point near the end of my tenure, the work environment had become so toxic that I had to be admitted into a heart hospital. And after many tests, I was ultimately put on anti-anxiety medication. This condition was something new to me. I had no history of it prior to my employment there and have never been treated for it since. Now, when I decided to resign, my wife was pregnant with our firstborn child. It was a terrifying position to be put in, but I absolutely knew that I could not be the husband or dad I was called to be for them in my current state. Something had to change, and if I couldn't change my work environment, then it was time for me to remove myself from it. I was fully aware that willfully resigning would mean I would forfeit any sort of severance. I trusted that God would provide. What I had not anticipated is how much it would cost me to quit. This is where my first experience with legal abuse began. Starting from the day I delivered my notice of resignation, I was put on the phone with company lawyers, and the good cop, bad cop coercion campaign to get my signature on an NDA was well underway. I was told many lies throughout this process. I immediately hired my own legal counsel, and by the grace of God, understanding my predicament, he even agreed to work for half of his normal rate. Even so, the legal fees immediately began to pile up. My former employer and his attorney argued I could not work in media anywhere in the world, and most certainly not in the United States for 2 years. This is not because I had voluntarily signed some sort of non-compete in my original employment agreement. It was because they decided a non-solicitation clause that was in said original agreement would retroactively be interpreted as the broadest and strictest non-compete one could draft. They told me on my Twitter account, another potential lifeline to future work, which I had owned and been the sole manager of since 2009, was to be turned over to them on the argument that it was somehow their intellectual property now. Presumably to keep me from working even further, my former employer even tried to claim my personal production equipment, gear I had owned for years prior to working there, as company property. After producing every receipt to validate my ownership, a vicious lie that I stole from the company was born and disseminated by my employer. By the way, breaking their side of this bogus mutual non-disparagement agreement. I have those receipts as well. All I simply wanted to do was peacefully leave. It was clear by my employer, though, that this was not only unacceptable, but that I needed was born and disseminated by my employer. By the way, breaking their side of this bogus mutual non-disparagement agreement. I have those receipts as well. All I simply wanted to do was peacefully leave. It was clear by my employer, though, that this was not only unacceptable, but that I needed to be punished for doing so. Being bullied on each of these terms and many more, fighting for my basic freedoms to leave and provide for my family, immediately sent me into legal debt. I did not want to sign anything, mind you. But the negotiations with my former employer left no question that without a signed NDA, my guaranteed silence, I would undoubtedly be harassed well into the future. No matter if there are future claims against me for where I worked or what I did or what I said were legitimate or not, it didn't matter. It would cost me thousands and thousands to fight back, and they knew that. I had to make a deal with nothing but a small savings account and my last paycheck. I had to accept the deal I could afford. It's very important to note here that, where is it? It's here. I was not paid a single dollar for its consideration. Which brings me to what you might be asking next. What was the reason I did sign this? And again, as a man with his first child on the way, the small victory I got from it. The primary reason I signed the NDA was for a small carve-out in the non-compete clause, which allowed me to freely seek employment using some of my skill sets at another specific company. At least I could feed my family. That provision, however, was a lie. And upon starting my new job at the new said company, I was giving another one of these, a cease and desist, and was promptly unlawfully terminated from that position. I added thousands more to my legal debt trying to fight back, My wife was very pregnant by this time, and without a financial safety net for groceries and a baby crib, much less a legal fund to file a countersuit, I simply had to let it go, trusting God had a plan. To that point, I want to say that I'm happy to report that he did have a plan, and what was intended for evil, God used for good, and it took me years to pay off my legal debt, but the story of God's faithfulness in my life became a very large part of my testimony, and I'm just so grateful for the opportunities that he gave me, and yeah, it's a story for another day, but back to this. While my supposed non-compete expired after 2 years, unfortunately, the most egregious part of my NDA, the part that silences my free speech, has no expiration. While NDAs are classically used to protect trade secrets, unfortunately, in the entertainment industry, they are too often used to protect disgusting, unlawful activity and many forms of abuse. We see examples of this all the time. Powerful people and their attorneys routinely use NDAs to silence victims in order to remain powerful people. Free speech matters. Matters a lot to me, and that's not just a t-shirt slogan. It really matters. And these kinds of NDAs right here, stemming from this, are unquestionably unconstitutional. I will not live with the burden of this unconstitutional NDA over my head for the rest of my life, especially when information I have can be used to aid other victims escape their own abusive situations, which is the context for which this former employer feels they caught me breaking my agreement. Let me be clear, what I'm afraid of is legal harassment in perpetuity, not the truth. Only one side of this ordeal is spending a fortune to hide truth and punish anyone who dares speak up for themselves or other victims. While not give in to the harassment by my former employer, I have to recognize that this process has already become unbearably expensive. Not only because of the general expense of the legal process, but because my former employer has seemingly unlimited wealth and resources to gleefully spend punishing powerless people. I tried to handle legal fees on my own these last months, and the fees have already reached the tens of thousands of dollars with no resolution in sight. Unstopped, this type of legal abuse could go on for years and years and quickly escalate into hundreds of thousands of dollars as I fight to protect myself and my family. I cannot put my wife and my children through this. Not again. I cannot be bound to an unconstitutional NDA like this forever. Protecting my family means finding a path that doesn't leave us in financial ruin, and we are simply out of funds, and I have no other option but to ask for help. I'm asking for donations for 2 reasons. Number one, obviously to help with the financial burden I've already accrued with this legal matter right here. That's taking care of. That matter is priority number one as I'm going further and further into debt with each passing day. The second reason I'm asking for financial assistance is to proactively address my unconstitutional anti-free speech NDA, which is the basis for all of their claims against me. The simplest resolution here would be for my ex-employer to release me from the NDA. Give me and my fellow ex-employees the same free speech they publicly champion for every other American. But I can almost guarantee you that will not happen. I've already witnessed them spend unfathomable amounts of money in other cases to protect their double life and secrets. No more darkness. That's why, beyond the current burden I face from my ex-employer's legal abuse, I will be using these donations to fight back and file a counter motion, placing my unconstitutional NDA before a judge to have it dissolved in its entirety. I want my First Amendment rights back. I want to stop the cycle of abuse, and I want truth to be known. This takes incredible resources I simply don't have. Truthfully, I don't know how much money this will take, probably much more than my current goal is, but every penny I do have left from your donations will go toward helping other ex-employees, dear friends of mine, fight back and escape their identical situations with the same employer. To accept donations, I've set up a GoFundMe. And to make it easy, you can go to freejaredmonroe.com. It will take you there. Please share this message. I know some of you cannot afford to help, but simply retweeting this post helps so much. And for any of you who can help, big or small, public or anonymous, I, my wife, my children, thank you from the bottoms of our hearts. And I do just want to say this. If you too are or have been a victim of such abuse, for whatever it's worth, know that I see you and I hear you, and I encourage you to be courageous. No more darkness. Victims of the cruel and powerful deserve a voice. Truth is the sword that slays the monsters, so let there be truth. Free speech matters.